The blue-green planet hung silently in space. Once it had been full of noise and life. Now it was quiet. Tay looked at Earth through the viewport of his small research ship. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he prepared for another day of work. Tay was young for a xenoarchaeologist. Most Avarians spent at least 50 years studying before they got their own research missions. But Tay had always been different. He worked harder than the others. He asked questions no one else thought to ask. That was why the Avarian Science Council had sent him to Earth. Begin recording, Tay said to his ship's computer. Day 15 of excavation at Site 103, formerly known as Sol. The weather is stable. I will continue exploring the residential area discovered yesterday. Tay gathered his tools. His tall, thin body moved gracefully despite the higher gravity of Earth. His skin was a pale blue color that seemed to glow in the morning light. He put on his breathing mask. Earth's air had too much oxygen for Avarians. It would make him dizzy without protection. The landing craft touched down in a flat area surrounded by crumbling structures. Plants had taken over most of the city. Vines and trees grew through the remains of buildings. It had been 300 years since humans disappeared. Nature had reclaimed much of their world. Fascinating, Tay muttered as he stepped onto Earth soil. His scanner beeped softly, searching for anything unusual. Most of his colleagues thought these missions were a waste of time. Humans had been considered primitive. Their sudden disappearance was seen as further proof of their weakness. The common theory was that they had destroyed themselves in war or been wiped out by disease. Tay wasn't so sure. Something about the human story didn't make sense to him. Their technology had been advancing rapidly before they vanished. There were no signs of a major war. No evidence of a planet-wide disease. They had simply gone away. He walked through the ruins, recording what he found. Broken pieces of their lives were everywhere. A metal cooking tool, a child's toy, a device that might have played music. Each item told part of the human story, but not enough of it. This building appears to have been a home for a small family group, Tay said into his recorder. He stepped carefully through what had once been a doorway. The roof was mostly gone. Sunlight streamed down onto broken furniture and fallen walls. Tay's scanner beeped more loudly. Something was different here. He followed the signal to a corner of the room. The floor looked unusual. After examining it closely, he realized part of it could be moved. Humans had hidden something here. Using his tools with great care, Tay lifted the section of floor. Underneath was a small space. Inside was a metal box about the size of his hand. It showed almost no damage despite the centuries that had passed. I have discovered a preservation capsule, Tay said excitedly. It appears to have been intentionally hidden beneath the floor of this dwelling. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the box. According to protocol, he should alert the Galactic Historical Authority immediately. They would take the box and study it. Tay might not even be told what they found inside. He hesitated. This could be important. Maybe the most important discovery of his career. Something told him he needed to open it himself. I will secure the artifact and examine it on my research vessel, he said carefully into his recorder. It wasn't exactly a lie. He would examine it. He just wouldn't mention it to the authorities right away. Back on his ship, Tay placed the box on his workstation. The scanner showed no dangerous materials inside, no explosives or toxins, just something made of plant, fiber, paper the humans had called it. He opened the box slowly. Inside was a folded sheet of paper with marks on it. Writing. A letter. His translator implant tried to make sense of the symbols, but struggled. This wasn't the standard human language, taught in xenoarchaeology courses. It was an older variant. Computer, analyze this document. Compare with all known human writing systems. The computer hummed softly. Writing system identified as Korean, a regional human language. Translation program updating. Tay felt excitement building inside him. Most discovered human writings were boring. Business records, government documents, instructions for machines. A personal letter was rare. It might tell him something about the humans themselves. He worked through the night, adjusting the translation program, trying to understand the faded marks on the paper. His 4 eyes grew tired, but he kept working. There was something about this letter that felt important, something that called to him across the centuries. As the Earth turned below his orbiting ship, Tay finally began to understand parts of the letter. It was written by someone named Hannah. She was writing to her unborn child. That was unusual enough. But what she was writing about made Tay's hearts beat faster. Not the end, but a beginning, he translated. We leave not in defeat, but in hope. Tay sat back, his mind racing. The history book said humans had gone extinct, or killed each other off, or fled from some disaster they had caused. But this letter suggested something else entirely. He kept translating, piece by piece. Your father leads the Third Fleet. I stayed behind to finish my work. The seeding must be complete before I can join you beyond the barrier. Fleet? Barrier? These words suggested a planned departure, an organized journey, not an extinction. Computer, what is known about human space travel capabilities before their disappearance? The computer displayed the information. Human space. Technology was primitive, limited to their own solar system, no faster than light travel, no significant off-world colonies. But the letter in front of him told a different story. Either Hannah was writing fiction, or the official history was wrong. Tay worked for 3 more days, barely sleeping, barely eating. The letter was long and complex. Parts of it might never be fully translated. But he understood enough to know this was going to change everything. On the 4th day, as Earth's sun rose over the abandoned continent once called Asia, Tay read the last translated section of the letter again. His hands shook. We will return. The time is set 1,000 years. Remember the coordinates. Tell no one but our own. The guardians will watch and wait. He checked the date on the letter. Then he did the calculation. If what Hannah wrote was true, the 1,000 years would be complete in just 3 months. Tay looked down at the blue planet turning slowly below his ship. Had the humans really left on purpose? Were they coming back? And who were these guardians? She mentioned? He had to find out more. This wasn't just about satisfying his curiosity anymore. If humans were returning, the entire galaxy needed to know. Tay made his decision. He would share this discovery with Sue, his trusted colleague at the Galactic Archives. Together they would solve this mystery, and if the letter was telling the truth, they didn't have much time. He carefully placed the letter back in its protective box. What had started as a routine excavation had become the most important discovery of his life. Perhaps the most important discovery in galactic history. The human words echoed in his mind. We will return. For the first time in his career, Tay was afraid of what he might find. 5 days had passed since Tay found the letter. He had barely slept. Food remained untouched on his desk. His 4 eyes were red from strain. But finally he had done it. The letter was fully translated. Computer, save final translation, Tay said, his voice rough from lack of use. Translation saved, the computer replied. Would you like to hear it? Tay hesitated. Until now he had only understood parts of the letter, individual words and phrases. Now he would hear the complete message from a woman who had lived 300 years ago. A human named Hannah. Yes, he said. Read it aloud. The computer began to speak in a neutral voice. To my child who I have not yet met, I write this letter not knowing if anyone will ever read it. By the time you are old enough to understand these words, we will be far from Earth. Or perhaps I will have found a way to take this letter with me. My name is Hannah. I am your mother. As I write this, you are growing inside me. The doctors say you are healthy and strong. Your father, Quan, says you kick like a dancer already. He is with the Third Fleet now, preparing the ships. I stayed behind to complete my work. I am a geneticist. My research is important for where we are going. You might wonder why we left Earth. The official story that we have shared with the other species is a lie. We did not die out. We did not destroy ourselves. We chose to leave. 20 years ago, We discovered something about ourselves, something that made us different from every other intelligent species in the galaxy. Our bodies can adapt to environments that would kill others. We can live on worlds where the air has less oxygen, where the gravity is stronger, where the radiation is higher. At first, we thought this was just an interesting fact. Then we realized what it meant. The other species would fear us if they knew. They would see us as a threat. Some might try to destroy us before we became too powerful. So we made a plan. A big plan. The biggest plan in human history. We would leave known space. We would travel beyond the galactic barrier where no other species has gone. We would find new worlds, build new homes, and when the time was right, we would return. The plan took years to prepare. We built ships in secret. We moved people off Earth slowly, so no one would notice. We stored our knowledge, our history, our art. Nothing important would be left behind. Some humans chose to stay. They became the guardians. They would live among the other species, watching and waiting. They have ways to extend their lives, ways to change how they look. By now, there are guardians in every major civilization in the galaxy, even in places where no human has officially been. We will return in exactly 1,000 years. The date is set. The coordinates are fixed. We will come back to the edge of known space near the star you know as Xylos. Remember this. Xylos. It will be important. Why are we coming back? Because we found something beyond the barrier. Something wonderful and terrible. Something all thinking beings need to know, but I cannot write it here. It is too important, too dangerous. We must tell everyone together or not at all. If you are reading this on Earth, then I failed to return for this letter. Perhaps I failed to leave at all. Know that I loved you before. I met you. Know that everything we did for the future. For your future. Be brave. Be kind. Be human. Your mother, Hanate, sat in silence when the computer finished. The ship hummed quietly around him. Outside, Earth continued its endless circle around its sun, unaware of the secrets it had kept. The letter changed everything. The history, books were wrong. Humans had not gone extinct. They had left on purpose. And if the letter was true, they would return in less than 3 months. Tay checked the star charts. Xylos was a small, unremarkable star at the edge of known space. No one lived there. No important trade routes passed nearby. It was the perfect place for a secret return. His mind raced with questions. Who were these guardians? Human spies living among other species? It seemed impossible. The major civilizations of the galaxy had different atmospheres, different gravity, different biology. How could humans hide among them? And what had they found beyond the barrier? The galactic barrier was a region of intense radiation and strange energy fields. No ship had ever passed through it and returned. Most scientists believed nothing could survive on the other side. Tay needed help. This was too big for one xenoarchaeologist to handle alone. He needed someone he could trust, someone with access to information he didn't have. Computer established secure link to galactic archives, priority channel to research director Sue. The computer beeped as it created the connection. After a moment, a face appeared on the screen. Sue was older than Tay, her blue skin darker with age. All 4 of her eyes widened when she saw him. Tay? You look terrible. What happened? Is the Earth mission going badly? Sue, I found something. Something big. I need your help, but you cannot tell anyone else, not yet. Sue tilted her head, confused. That's against protocol. You know all findings must be reported. I know. But this is different. This could affect everyone in the galaxy. I need you to check some information for me first. Can I trust you? Sue was quiet for a moment. She and Tay had studied together years ago. She knew he would not break the rules without a good reason. Tell me, she said finally. I need information about human disappearance theories. Anything unusual. In the records. And I need you to check if there have been any strange energy readings near the star Xylos. Xylos? That's in the middle of nowhere. Why would you— Please, Sue, it's important, she sighed. Fine, I'll help. But you owe me an explanation soon. You'll get one. I'm sending you a file now. It's a translation of a human letter I found. Read it privately. Then call me back. After the call ended, Tay leaned back in his chair. He felt both excited and afraid. If the letter was true, everything would change in 3 months. The humans would return. And they had found something important beyond the barrier. But there was another part of the letter that bothered him. The Guardians, human spies living among other species. Could they really exist? Could they be anywhere? Tay looked at his reflection in the dark screen, his blue skin, his 4 eyes. He had never questioned who he was, but the letter made him wonder about everyone. Could there be humans disguised as Avarians? The idea seemed crazy. But if humans could really adapt to different environments, as the letter claimed— Tay turned back to his computer. He needed to learn more about human biology, about their claimed ability to adapt. Was it even possible? Or was the letter just a story? A piece of fiction buried in the ruins of Earth? He had 3 months to find out. 3 months before the 1,000 years were complete. 3 months before humans might return to the galaxy they had left behind. Tay began to search the scientific databases, looking for any information about human adaptability. As he worked, Earth turned silently below, keeping its secrets in the ruins of cities long abandoned. 3 days after sending the letter to Sue, Tay received an urgent message. He had been sleeping when his computer alerted him. It was the first real sleep he had gotten in a week. Incoming secure transmission from Galactic Archives Director, Sue, the computer announced. Tay sat up quickly. Accept transmission. Sue's face appeared on the screen. She looked as tired as Tay felt. Her eyes were wide with excitement or fear. Maybe both. Tay, she said quietly, I found things that support the letter. Tay felt his heart beat faster. Tell me. First, I checked our records about human disappearance. The official story has holes in it. Big holes. There was no evidence of war or disease. They just left. Ships were missing from their orbital stations. Certain technologies disappeared too. Tay nodded. This matched what he had suspected. But there's more, Sue continued. I searched for odd reports from that time. I found messages from trading ships near Earth. They reported seeing large groups of ships leaving the solar system. These reports were marked as errors and buried in the archives. And Xylos, Tay asked. Did you find anything about the star? Sue's face became serious. Yes. For the past month, strange energy readings have been detected in that area. The science authority says it's just a sensor problem. But I checked the raw data. Something is happening there, something big. Tay felt a chill run through his body. The letter was true. It had to be. Humans were coming back, just as Hannah had written. There's one more thing, Sue said, lowering her voice even though the channel was secure. I searched for any unusual records about humans living among other species. And I found reports going back hundreds of years. Strange people who didn't quite fit in. People who disappeared when questions were asked. Most reports were ignored or explained away, but together they form a pattern. The Guardians, Tay whispered. Yes. If they exist, they've been living among us for centuries. Watching us. Learning about us. Maybe even guiding us. Tay thought about what this meant. Humans hadn't just survived. They had been present all along, hidden in plain sight. The implications were enormous. Tay, we need to tell someone about this, Sue said. The Avarian Council needs to know. No, Tay said quickly. Not yet. We need more proof. Right now, all we have is an old letter and some strange reports. They'll think we're crazy. Sue was quiet for a moment. I already told someone, she admitted. My department head, Bo. He's trustworthy, and he has access to better resources than I do. Tay felt panic rise in his chest. You shouldn't have done that. The letter said the Guardians are everywhere. What if Bo is one of them? Sue laughed. Bo? He's been my mentor for 30 years. He's as a Varian as you or me. That's the point, Tay said. If the letter is true, we can't know who's really a Varian and who might be a human guardian. Before Sue could respond, there was a noise off screen. She looked away, then back at Tay, her eyes now filled with worry. Bo just arrived at my office, with 2 security officers. I have to go. The screen went dark. Tay tried to call back, but there was no answer. Sue was gone. For the next 2 days, Tay couldn't reach Sue. His messages to the archives went unanswered. He considered flying back to Avaria, but that would take weeks. Instead, he continued his research on Earth, looking for more evidence. On the 3rd day, his ship received a priority message from Avaria. It was an official summons from the High Council. He was ordered to return immediately and bring all findings from Earth. Tay knew he had no choice. The Council's orders couldn't be ignored. He packed the letter carefully and prepared his ship for the long journey home. The trip to Avaria took 18 days. Tay spent the time reviewing everything he knew about humans, their biology, their history, their sudden disappearance. He searched for any clue that might help him understand what was happening. When he finally arrived on Avaria, he was met by government officials who escorted him directly to the council building. The grand hall was full when he entered. All 7 members of the High Council were present, sitting on their elevated platform. The room was filled with other officials and scientists. Tay saw Sue standing to one side with a tall Avarian he recognized as Bo. She gave him a small nod. She looked worried but unharmed. Xenoarchaeologist Tay, the council leader, spoke. You have found something on Earth, something important enough to share with Archive Director Sue, but not with your own government. Explain yourself. Tay took a deep breath. This was his chance to tell the truth. All of it. Honored Council, he began. I found a letter written by a human named Hana. The letter suggests that humans did not go extinct. They left our galaxy on purpose, and they plan to return. Murmurs spread through the room. The council leader raised a hand for silence. These are serious claims. Do you have this letter with you? Yes, Tay said. He took out the preservation box and opened it carefully. The ancient paper was inside, along with his translation device. Before he could hand it over, an older council member stood up. He was taller than most Avarians, with darker blue skin. His name was Jun, and he rarely spoke at meetings. There is no need to examine the letter, Jun said, his voice strong and clear. It speaks the truth. The room went completely silent. Every eye turned to Jun. How can you be certain? The council leader asked. Jun stepped forward. Because I knew Hana. I watched her write that letter 300 years ago. The silence broke as everyone began talking at once. The council leader shouted for order, but the noise continued. Jun stood calmly in the center of the chaos. When the room finally quieted, Jun spoke again. My name is not Jun. That is the name I took when I came to Avaria 200 years ago. Before that, I had other names on other worlds. My original name, my human name, is Lee. Tay stared in shock. Jun, one of the oldest and most respected council members, was human? It seemed impossible. He looked Avarian. His skin was blue. He had 4 eyes. This is madness, another council member said. You have been among us for decades. You cannot be human. Jun smiled. But I am. We humans can change. Adapt. It is our greatest strength. With the right modifications, we can survive anywhere, live as anyone, and we have been among you all this time, watching and waiting. Why? Tay asked, finding his voice. Why hide for so long? Jun turned to him. To prepare the galaxy for our return, to learn which species would welcome us and which would fear us, to guide when necessary and observe when possible. So the letter is true? The council leader asked. Humans are returning? Yes, Jun said. In less than 60 days, human ships will arrive near the star Xylos. After 3 centuries beyond the barrier, they are coming home. The council chambers erupted again. Some officials called for immediate military action. Others demanded more information. A few simply left the room, too shocked to stay. Tay stood in the middle of it all, still holding Hana's letter. He had found it buried in the ruins of Earth. Now its message had been revealed to the entire Avarian leadership. Soon the news would spread to other worlds, other species. Jun, or Lee as he now called himself, walked over to Tay. "You did well, young one," he said quietly. "You found the letter just as we hoped someone would." "You knew?" Tay asked. "You knew I would find it?" Jun nodded. "We left many letters, many clues. Some have been found over the years, others remain hidden. Yours was the first to reach the right people at the right time." Tay had more questions, but before he could ask them, the council leader called for order again. "We must prepare for what comes next," she announced. "If humans are returning, the entire galaxy needs to know. We will send messages to all major civilizations, and we will send ships to Xylos to verify these claims." Jun smiled. The revelation had begun. After centuries of secrecy, the truth about humanity was finally spreading across the stars. News spread fast across the galaxy. Within 10 days, every major civilization knew about the humans. The story of the letter found by Tai was told and retold. Some believed it. Others called it a lie. But everyone talked about it. Tay now worked directly with the Avarian Council. They had given him a new title, Special Ambassador to Human Relations. It still felt strange to him. Just 1 month ago, he had been a simple xenoarchaeologist digging through Earth ruins. Now he was at the center of the biggest event in recent galactic history. The Zorvan Empire has sent another message, Sue told him as they walked through the government building. "They want to know if we have proof that humans are returning. They think this might be an Avarian trick." Tay sighed. The Zorvans were always suspicious. Their crystalline bodies housed minds that constantly looked for threats. "Tell them what we told everyone else. We have the letter. We have Lee, and we have the energy readings from Xylos. If they want more proof, they will get it in 50 days when the human fleet arrives." Sue nodded and made a note on her device. She had become Tay's assistant in the past week. Her knowledge of galactic records was invaluable. "There is something else," she said quietly. "More Guardians have revealed themselves. Not just on Avaria, but on 12 other worlds. This was new information." "Which species?" "All the major ones. 2 among the Zorvans. 3 with the Palaki. Even one serving on the Unified Galactic Council." Tay stopped walking. "The Council? Humans have infiltrated the highest galactic authority?" Sue looked uncomfortable. "Lee says they prefer the term integrated with rather than infiltrated. He says they never meant harm. They were just watching and sometimes guiding." Tay wasn't sure how he felt about that. The Guardians had lived secret lives for centuries. They had pretended to be members of other species. Was that protection or deception? What is happening on those worlds? How are people reacting? Sue checked her device again. Mixed reactions. The Palaki seem fascinated. They are treating their Guardians like celebrities. The Zorvans have arrested theirs for questioning. The others fall somewhere in between. They entered the conference room where Lee was waiting. He looked the same as always, blue skin, 4 eyes. But now Tay knew it was all an adaptation. Underneath, Lee was human. "Good morning," Lee said. "We have much to discuss. Our ship's near. Xylos have detected more energy disturbances. The humans are getting closer." Tay sat down across from him. "I have questions. Many questions. You lived among us for 200 years. How is that possible? Our lifespans are not that long." Lee smiled. "Human technology before we left was already advancing quickly. We developed methods to extend our lives, to change our bodies. The Guardians received these treatments before the rest of humanity departed. And your appearance, how do you look, Avarian? Genetic modifications, surgical changes, some technological aids." Lee gestured to his eyes. "2 of these are artificial, connected directly to my brain. My skin contains compounds that change its color and texture. With the right modifications, humans can adapt to live almost anywhere. Sue joined them at the table. Is that what Hana meant in her letter? About humans being able to adapt to environments that would kill others? Yes, Lee said. It is our defining trait. Other species evolved to fit perfectly in their home environments. Humans evolved to adapt to new environments. We can live in more places than any other intelligent species. That is why some feared us, and why we chose to leave rather than risk conflict. Before they could discuss more, an aide rushed into the room. Ambassador Tay, we have an urgent situation. The Zorvan Empire has deployed warships to Xylos. They say they are preparing to defend against a human invasion. Tay stood up quickly. That is exactly what we hope to avoid. We need to contact them immediately. Lee shook his head. It won't help. The Zorvans have always been aggressive. They see threats everywhere. And now they know that humans have been living among them for centuries. They feel betrayed. So what do we do? Tay asked. We go to Xylos ourselves, Lee said. The Avarian Council has agreed to send a diplomatic mission. You will lead it, Tay. As the finder of the letter, you have symbolic importance. I will go with you, as will representatives from other species that have chosen peace over conflict. Tay felt overwhelmed. Me? Lead a diplomatic mission? I am not trained for this. No one is trained for this, Lee said gently. No one has ever welcomed a lost species back to the galaxy before. But you have a good heart, Tay. You seek truth, not power. That is why you were chosen. 3 days later, Tay found himself on the bridge of the largest Avarian ship ever built. The Horizon was a diplomatic vessel, but it also carried defensive systems. No one knew what to expect at Xylos. The ship was filled with diplomats and scientists from 20 different species. Those who wanted to welcome the humans, or at least to understand them before making judgments. Other ships were also heading to Xylos, some friendly, some hostile. The Zorvans had sent 12 warships, the Palaki had sent research vessels, the Unified Galactic Council had sent its own massive ship carrying observers. As the Horizon prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Tay looked around the bridge. He saw beings from across the galaxy, different shapes, different biologies, different ways of thinking, and among them were 7 revealed guardians. They looked like members of other species, but they were all human underneath. Jump sequence beginning, the captain announced. All personnel prepare for transit. Tay took his seat. Next to him, Lee looked calm. After 200 years of waiting, he was finally going to see his own kind again. Are you nervous? Tay asked. Lee nodded. Very. I have lived as an Avarian for so long I sometimes forget I was born human. What if they have changed too much? What if we no longer understand each other? Tay had never thought about that. The Guardians had lived apart from the main human exodus. Both groups had 300 years to develop in different directions. We will arrive at Xylos in 8 days, Lee continued. By then, the human fleet should be visible, and we will learn what they found beyond the barrier. What was so important that they planned this return for centuries. The ship hummed as its engines powered up. The stars outside the viewports stretched into lines as the Horizon jumped to faster-than-light travel. Tay thought about how much had changed since he found Hana's letter. The galaxy was in turmoil. Some species prepared for war while others prepared for a reunion. And he, a simple xenoarchaeologist, was now leading a diplomatic mission to meet a species that everyone had thought was extinct. Whatever waited for them at Xylos, the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans were coming home, and they were bringing something important with them, something they had found beyond the barrier. In 8 days, Tay would learn what it was. In 8 days, everyone would know why Hana had written her letter to a child she might never meet, why the Guardians had watched and waited for 3 centuries. In 8 days, the future of the galaxy would be decided at a small, unremarkable star named Xylos. The space around Xylos was crowded with ships. Tay had never seen so many vessels gathered in one place. There were sleek Palaki research ships, heavy Zorvan warships with their crystal technology glowing bright, and hundreds of smaller craft, from dozens of species. 8 days had passed quickly aboard the Horizon. Tay had spent the time meeting with representatives from different worlds, learning their hopes and fears about the human return. Some were excited to meet a species they had only read about in history books. Others worried that humans would want revenge for being forced to leave. "We never forced them to leave," Lee had explained during one tense meeting. "Humans chose to go. We saw how some species reacted to our adaptability. Rather than risk conflict, we decided to explore beyond the barrier. It was our choice." Not everyone believed him. Trust was difficult when people learned that humans had been living among them in disguise for centuries. Now, as the Horizon took its position at the agreed meeting point, Tay stood on the observation deck with Lee and Sue. They looked out at the stars, waiting. "There," Sue said suddenly, pointing to a spot near the barrier. "Energy readings are increasing." Tay looked where she pointed. At first he saw nothing. Then a shimmer appeared in the darkness, like a ripple in still water. The barrier between galaxies was changing. "It's starting," Lee whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "After 300 years, they're coming through." The ripple grew larger. Space itself seemed to bend and fold. Then, with a flash of light that made Tay shield, his eyes, a ship appeared, then another and another. "Look at them," Sue gasped. "They're beautiful." The human ships were unlike anything Tay had ever seen. They seemed to be made of light and shadow together. They moved with impossible grace, as if they were alive rather than machines. They glowed with soft colors that shifted and changed. "Those aren't the ships we left in," Lee said, his 4 eyes wide with wonder. "They've created something new out there." More ships continued to emerge from the barrier. Dozens, then hundreds, a vast fleet that spread out in a careful formation, keeping distance from the gathered galactic ships. The communication system chimed. "Ambassador Tay," the captain called. "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. They wish to speak with the representatives of the galactic species." Tay took a deep breath. This was the moment everything had been leading to since he found Hana's letter. "Send it to the main conference room," he replied, "and notify all representatives." The large conference room filled quickly. Representatives from 20 species took their seats around the circular table. Screens showed the leaders of other ships watching from their own vessels. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. The main screen activated. On it appeared a human face. A woman with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. She wore a simple white uniform with no visible rank or insignia. "I am Admiral Min of the Human Exploration Fleet," she said, her voice calm and clear. "We return as promised after 300 years beyond the barrier. We come in peace and friendship to all species of the galaxy." Tay stepped forward as the designated speaker. "I am Ambassador Tay of Avaria. With me are representatives from many worlds. We welcome your return, though some among us have questions and concerns." Min nodded. "That is understandable. We left suddenly. We lived among you in secret. Trust must be earned anew." A Zorvan representative stood up. His crystalline body glittered under the lights. "Why should we trust you? Your kind hid among us, pretended to be us. How do we know this is not the start of an invasion?" Instead of looking offended, Min smiled. "If we wanted to invade, we would not have announced our return. The Guardians lived among you to learn and understand, not to harm. But words alone won't convince you. Actions will. Let me show you why we have returned." The screen changed. It showed images from beyond the barrier. Strange stars, unusual planets, life forms unlike any Ty had seen before. "We found wonders out there," Min continued as the images played. "New worlds, new species, new ways of thinking. We learned and grew in ways we never could have imagined." The screen changed again. Now it showed a massive wave of energy moving through space. "But we also found this," Min said, her voice growing serious. "A gamma ray burst from a collapsing star in the neighboring galaxy. It is moving toward known space. In 80 years, It will reach the most populated regions of this galaxy. Murmurs spread through the room. Tay looked at Sue, who had gone pale. A gamma ray burst of this magnitude would destroy all life on any world in its path, Min explained. Billions would die. Entire civilizations would end. We discovered it 50 years ago and have been preparing ever since. Preparing how? Tay asked. We found safe regions beyond the barrier, places the burst won't reach. We've built new worlds there, homes for everyone, adapted to the needs of each species. And we've developed shield technology that can protect ships during the journey. The meaning of her words sank in. The humans had returned not to reclaim their place in the galaxy, but to save everyone from a disaster no one knew was coming. You want to evacuate the entire galaxy? The Zorvan representative asked in disbelief. Not all of it, Min replied. Just the regions in the path of the burst, about 60% of currently inhabited systems. We have 80 years to move billions of people. It will take the combined efforts of all species to succeed. Silence fell over the room as everyone absorbed this information. Then Lee stood up. I am Lee, once called Jun. I am one of the guardians who stayed behind when humanity left. I have lived among the Avarians for 200 years. He looked at Min. Is it really possible? Can we save everyone? Min nodded. If we work together, yes. The safe zones can support all forms of life. We've spent centuries preparing them. Tay found his voice again. You left to explore, but you came back to save us. Why? Because that's what humans do. Min said simply. We adapt. We survive. And we help others survive too. We could have stayed safe beyond the barrier. But that's not who we are. The discussions continued for hours. Questions were asked and answered. Fears were addressed. Plans were shared. Slowly, understanding began to grow. As the meeting finally ended, Tay stood with Lee and Sue by the viewport, watching the beautiful human ships hover against the stars. I never expected this, Tay admitted. I thought finding the letter would lead to diplomatic talks, maybe new trade agreements. Not a plan to save the galaxy. Hana knew, Lee said softly. She knew what they might find out there. That's why the letter was so important. Why she made sure it would be found at the right time. Sue looked thoughtful. Do you think she's still alive? Hana? Lee shook his head. Probably not. Even with our life extension, 300 years is a long time. But her child might be. The child she wrote the letter for. As if in answer to his words, the communication system chimed again. Ambassador Tay, Admiral Min requests to speak with you privately, and she has someone with her she says you should meet. When Tay entered the private communication room, the screen showed Admiral Min standing next to an elderly human woman. Despite her apparent age, she stood straight, and her eyes were clear and bright. Ambassador Tay, Min said. This is Elder Rin, our most respected historian. She has a personal connection to the letter you found. The elderly woman stepped forward. Hello, Ambassador. My mother was Hana. I am the child she wrote that letter for. Tay felt his heart skip. You're Hana's daughter? Rin nodded. I was born 2 months after that letter was written. My mother took it with her when we left Earth, but she always said a copy should remain behind. A message in a bottle, cast into the ocean of time. She hoped someone would find it when the time was right. She smiled at Tay. And you did. Tay thought about the chain of events that had led to this moment. A letter hidden centuries ago. A xenoarchaeologist who asked questions. A galaxy now preparing for its greatest challenge. All connected across time by the words of a mother to her unborn child. Thank you, Tay said, for coming back. Thank you, Rin replied, for finding her letter, for helping us complete the circle. Now we begin the greatest journey of all. Together, outside the viewport, the stars continued their ancient dance, unaware that the intelligent beings who lived in their light were about to embark on an exodus unlike any before. An exodus led by humans who had once left, but had always planned to return when they were needed most.